Yo, what's Gucci, guys? We are back with the stream. Yep, we're not
What's
slacking.
up?
We're not slacking. We got big stuff coming up with Ring, being ready to yap your ears off with information. Information delivery we call it. My English is a bit fucking cooked right now. Don't know why. Fuck it. Probably because I had an interview. By the way, yes, I had an interview, and he
You
was
an
a
interview?
Sigma, and you can guess who
Oh,
that
okay.
is. What's up, guys? What's up, guys? All right, greetings. Yep, we are just starting the the stream. So, how's everyone? By the way, Ring, it's yeah, I know everyone circle jerks social 7, but it will be your time to do it, to have an interview, proper interview.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
we'll we'll see. I have to watch the other ones to see what I think about it. It would be
Well, you
interesting,
fucking wait,
but
you fucking didn't watch them? What you mean?
I'm a busy guy. I gotta watch
This
them.
guy,
I
man.
gotta catch
I'm a
up. I gotta
busy
catch up.
guy. Proceeds to yap. Proceeds to yap and doesn't stop yapping. This
Yo,
doesn't
why do you
work.
think I'm so busy?
Okay. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Okay, guys. Yo. TeoTube, what's up? V, what's up? Vamkin forever. Red can correlate both, but originally ILI is INTP, INTJ. Stop using MBTI. Makes life easier. Oh, Durek. Okay, so we have a moderated. What's up? What's good? What's good, guys? Nice to see you. So, Ring. What is today's topic? What you got in mind? Because obviously, the mastermind, right? What do you have prepared in your notes?
So I have a couple of different typology concepts that I'm either proposing or highlighting. It's within that type of sphere, right? And we have it in a bunch of different typologies, as you can tell from our name today. It's not just Enneagram, but we're also working on PY and Socionics. So we're gonna start off with a juicy one. A very juicy one is the E1 being the 1V mold. Now, I introduced this concept on the podcast maybe 2, 3 months ago. It's been so much time now. And I think that was a really good change because it got adopted very quickly about E1 being this hyper controlled, moral, even, uh, with a strong personality. This is the type of 1V. It's a statesman. It's someone who is determined to be pro-social. And that's been a great 1V mold. We have evolved past the E8 mold of, if you all remember, the E8 mold was, I don't give a fuck, I do what I want. That was the 1V perception. However, I wanted to add towards the 1V mold perception is that the E1 is not a perfect example of a 1V either. And I wanted to talk about another great example, which has been a classic example, which is the social 2. The social 2 is interesting because it has parts of the E1 that we like, kind of a statesman, has these good intentions, has a strong personality, but there's this more prominent uh, dual nature to them where they can be a representative of a system, representative of society, a statesman, but they're also very actively rebellious. They go against standards that they don't deem as being fit for people or their people. There's someone who is actively going to move against you, maybe start up counter companies, counter organizations, counter groups, even counter societies. And I think that's important to add because the E1 is still a great mold, but there's not much rebellion that is a great, maybe more in the sexual one we have those aspects, but I think social 2 has this idea of the grandiose personality, the self-brand. The self-brand of the social 2 is a good example of the 1V, where it is changing things around it for the sake of itself, yet it remains to be someone who defines himself as a moral good, a benefactor of society, a humanitarian even. And I think the social two does that really, really, really well. And when we moved over to the E1 mold, we kind of forgot that the
Yeah,
1V is someone who wants to remain someone who is lawful and morally good, but their greatest desire is still power, control, influence.
it
So
is.
they
People
will move
forget that. Yeah,
around
yeah,
rules. They will play with the idea of public perception. They will defend their reputation, but they want to still be these conquerors. They're still rebellious. They'll take
yeah.
opposing viewpoints. They will start new organizations. And I think rebellion is kind of missing from the E1. Now, of course, we can find examples of rebellious and counterculturally E1s, right? But I think that the social two generally it's a more of a norm to find them moving against structures. But this is the big part. It's rebellion with almost like a cause or a purpose around them. They're still think of themselves as moral good. They think of themselves as a benefactor, even when they're rebelling, even when the brand is all about them and them they're developing a cult of personality. So Russ, I want to hear your thoughts around this too. I feel like we're missing with the E1 mold the direct challenging of establishment.
Um, so that's kind of what happened because I've read the first will, obviously numerous times. Actually, even I was making a post about it on my own coffee. So yes, like one E fits many things, self-control, right? This pro-sociality, this morality. Yeah, but it's kind of like pick and choose because with first will you need to have a very broad, holistic understanding. So yes, on one hand, they're described as people who, uh, uh, right, moral, have ethics. Yeah, on
Yep.
the other hand, they're also described as people who will break them because there's this is not this is the thing that they're bound by is power, and the thing that goes beyond those ethics, if it doesn't serve them, if something that they want to get it means you need to break the norms. It means you need to not care about the norms. The first volition will do exactly that, and that's how they're described. And you mentioned rebellion, which is, as far as I know, a very big component of 1V. Because in Syntax of Love, there are many things said that the 1V doesn't have to be a leader. As many people, oh, it's a leader. No, but they will be a person who's not going to be controlled by other people. And this is someone who's going to contradict others. This is someone who's going to be very rebellious. And it's even said they are rebellious, very rebellious since they were kids. It's very rebellious since they were children. So this is important. And we used to believe Social 2 was like the most 1V. And then we kind of made like, yeah, 1E. But as you said, I think Social 2 actually fits more traits. If we do like a comparison, Social 2 actually has more traits of 1V than even E1. That's what I think.
It's very interesting because even I know that social two exemplifies traits of your basic 1V mold, but there's parts also about the social two that doesn't fit the 1V mold too, and that's something we have to kind of come to
But
terms
I
with.
think what we need to accept is that there's no type that will fit every
Exactly.
single aspect of 1V. But that
Exactly.
doesn't mean you have to say, no, they can't be 1V. Just because they don't fit that specific thing. It has to be holistic understanding, you know? So that's the way I see it. Even Social 2, of course, it has contradictions with 1V, that it's not gonna work. But we're not here to just pick and choose in that specific way. We look at the whole picture,
Exactly.
and the dynamics of the placement also matter.
Yeah, and let's take this to the next level too. Every 1V type in Syntax of Love has their own philosophy. And this is a point that Celestial Worthy has brought up
Shout
to me
out to
many
Celestial
times.
Worthy.
Shout out to Celestial Worthy, has brought up many times that a 1V's kingliness, that we always use that word, 1V above all else will subjugate their personality to kingliness, is not even the same kingliness. If you showed a VFEL the kingliness of a
That's true.
VELF, it would be like completely
Yeah,
night and day. Like they would think that they're a fucking loser,
Yeah.
and it'll go both ways, because the
Yeah, you
VEFL is also
cannot
like,
look
no,
and be
my
like,
way is
that's a
more
king.
kingly.
That's a king. They'll be like, nah, bro, that's a loser. That's pathetic. That's weak. That's what's gonna
Exactly.
happen. Yeah.
And that's something to keep in mind too. And that's why we attribute, different uh psychotype 1V psychotypes to types like social 7, social 1, sexual 1, social 8. They tend to have similarities and differences, right?
Yes.
So all we're trying to say is that there's no perfect 1V type.
No,
I
there
think
isn't.
that if there was some sort of perfect one, it would be a mix between social 1 and social 2, right? Sprinkling a little sexual 1 there, right? But the idea of the 1V, it
Yeah.
becomes two-dimensional in a system that's already very basic, right? It's two-dimensional and it leads people to misunderstand and
I just
become
like to
way too
keep it
rigid.
simple. Like to keep it simple with the Psychosophy. Don't, of course, we know what 1V is. We have all of those elements, but I'm not fixating on that specific thing when it comes to volitional placement. Like, oh
Yeah.
shit, he's not rebellious like that, so he's not gonna be 1V because 1V is rebellious. That's not
Yep.
gonna stop me from typing someone as 1V. Even if they're not rebellious, because they fit again the placement dynamics and they fit the placement very well. They fit the description of first volition. So I'm gonna do that, even if they don't fit that trait, for example.
It's so interesting because we have social eight example ones that either create their own gangs or infiltrate systems, and they're a good example of a 1V. We have social ones who are not even directly rebellious, but they have high positions in maybe like the church or the government, and they clearly influence it to their own ideals. We consider that to be 1V. Hell, there's social twos who their biggest things in life is to be part of an elite family and lead that family to like their version of greatness. That
I,
will also be
you
1V.
know
And
what?
that's the problem.
It would be great. The way I'm thinking is if we looked at all of the 1V people, the types, and asked ourselves, okay, so if we look at all of them, what do they all have in common without fail? Can we pinpoint what really they all share? Because they're all different, but at the end of the day, they have the same placement. That there should be intrinsic kind of traits that you can kind of pinpoint, and that could be cool to see how it might manifest, because it might help you understand. Okay, like those are the true traits of 1V across the board, because it's again regardless of the type. So that maybe, but that would require geeking out.
If you were able to simplify it,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, right, every 1V subjugates their personality to their philosophy of what is kingly, and that subjugated personality is above all else. And it's above all else so much, it spills into everything that they do. And they can't help but influence not just others,
yeah,
but aspects of society that interest them, you know? Um, and even the most detached, like let's say VFEL is an example of a more detached 1V that's not so grandiose as even their cousin, the VFLE, the Napoleon, right?
yeah,
They still can't help but influence people in their lives, in their work, and they have these ideals that are very unshakable. Um, Oftentimes VFELs are high positions in the military, and when anyone knows, when you're in the military, you're kind of cucked for like a lot of unilateral power. There's a very strong chain of command.
yeah.
So how does a 1V exist in that sphere? Aren't they all just 3Vs and
Exactly.
2Vs? No,
Yeah.
there's a bunch of 1Vs in the
Oh
military,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they all have big daddy fucking
Oh yeah.
other psychotypes above them, and they
But
might not even be like 1V types, but
but
yet they still exist.
I also think like people have a weird perception of 1V. It's two sigmas, like they cannot operate with other 1V people or
Yeah.
other.
Uh-huh.
It's like no, like you can genuinely have 1V person, and they might be supervised by a boss who's also 1V. And guess what? They're not gonna be swinging their dick being threatened, because the benefit, actually, in my opinion, of being first volition is that you're not gonna be threatened so easily by another human being who
Yep.
has presence or who's doing well for himself or whatever,
That
right?
result
Yeah,
orientation.
you're not gonna be like, oh shit, he's this way. No, it's like, I feel like you have such self-dignity. You're not gonna look at other people and be like, oh my god, they're better than me, they're superior to me, oh my god, you know? So you're able to approach people, even if they're in that position above, right? Without losing dignity and without being pressed about it. You can be 1v and be subordinated by another 1v or 2v or whatever the fuck. It really doesn't matter, you know? Like, obviously, let's not turn 1v into Sigma, that they cannot be supervised, like be helped, be mentored, be supervised by someone, you know? Obviously, with respect, they like autonomy, you know? So they might not appreciate a supervisor who's on their fucking ass, but that's kind of many people, you know?
Yeah, and it's very interesting because
we should also answer some questions. So before we go further, let's answer some questions. So
sure.
Do you think every PY type correlates with an Enneagram type? I don't know what that means, but in theory you should be able to do that. What do you think about 1V SP1? I don't know because I haven't really read about SP1. What do you think, Rain?
You know, I'll be honest with you all. I've gone back and forth with SP1 in a similar vein to SP3. I went back and forth, but I've become more decisive on SP3 in recent months. I think SP3 is very possible with VFLE, maybe even VFEL. VF for SP3 works really well, but I think the archetype is still going to be FVLE, right? Not a rule, but just what I've noticed archetypically. I think we're SP1. There are some examples that I can't say are not 1V examples, but to me, I'm not satisfied with any of the psychotypes for them yet. Because there's aspects of SP1 that outside of 1V, like it's not the fact that they could or could not be 1V, it's just I don't like any of the psychotypes for them currently. So maybe in the chat you guys can propose some ideas of what you think is archetypal for SP1's PY.
That's great. Wings really matter that much for us? No. And obviously on Reddit people be like, well, I'm a wing 9, which by the way is another name for a cosplayer. On Reddit, if you see someone who's a wing 9, I would bet you $10. Pick 100 of them. I would say 90, 95 gonna be mistyped. Notoriously self-fucking mistyped motherfuckers a wing 9 because the 9 wing changes everything. Fuck no, it doesn't. It's not supposed to. The wings, in a way, I view them as they have some temperamental differences. For example, Reza, which is an SP8 I interviewed, he is a wing 9. We talked about that. He relates to 9 more than he does ever to 7. I'm not the same way. I relate to 7 much more than I ever would with 9. So, of course, assuming that logic, we can type a wing 7, a wing 9. Is it really important? No, man. Because it's just a very slight, like a temperamental flavor. You cannot cope by using wings. Oh, I'm just not an aggressive 8 core. I'm an A-wing 9. I'm in the bear. You're just fucking LARPing. You are mistyped. There's no such thing. You know? The wings don't change who the fuck you are. They don't change your core type. At the end of the day, I don't give a fuck about wings. I care about subtypes. That's how Ring does the same. Ring doesn't go around asking people, yo, what's your type, bro? And your wing. No, he asks subtype. So that's what we do. What did you think of Elite Squad Captain Nascimento? Well, I don't know much about Nascimento because I haven't really watched it. I've heard of the show. I've heard that he's a sexual one. I've seen some scenes. Haven't watched the whole show. Many fighting with me over SLE that fits only SP8. With the news developments and new testimonies that were released in 27 Personalities in Search of Being, you can make an argument, a pretty good one. You know, if you look at Socionics, that it fits SLE quite well. And it's possible. Actually, I just typed someone recently, today, as an SLE social 8. A questionnaire, obviously, but separate questionnaires, you know. He made a Socionics questionnaire, he came out to be SLE. He made Enneagram questionnaire like a long time after.
Yeah, and I want to put it out there that once Lahuria comes out, right, and we have some more definitive like information about the subtype, I'm personally interested in making a document that highlights the combo between SLE and Social 8, similar to how I made my LAE and Social 7-1. Yeah, it's a very interesting combination, and I think that SLE is really misunderstood by the community, and so we'll see. You know, if I change my mind, we won't get it, of course. But if it does remain the same, you will see a document of the same caliber.
Fuck, I'm actually very excited. I'm actually very excited.
Hmm.
Would you say fourth placement love or hate when someone has this first placement? Does for
Just,
people? I think they can actually. I think for E people, they can get along quite well with one E people. I mean, think about it, there's an emotional richness in the other person, and if you were for E, you're kind of fucking decapitated in a sense. You don't, again, there is something missing. You're not really paying attention to the emotional world, same way as the 1E is. And there can be quite a bit of intrigue. They can be 1E influencing the 4E also and their emotions, making them feel more alive and shit like that. So it's possible. I would never say it's a rule because it depends on the person. Maybe 1/4E might really dislike this 1E person or just 1E overall. It just really depends on the individual. Same with 1V and 4V. It depends on the individual. That's how I would view it.
yeah, and I think it's really interesting because people forget even 1V 4E this happens to, but they have a lot more control over it. And just any fourth placement, they get influenced by the domain in which they have that fourth placement. So for 4Es, they get impacted by the expression, the attraction, the spiritualism, and sentimentality of others with higher E placements.
Yeah.
What the difference with 1V is that they
Yeah.
can control that kind of influence, but other than that, they're generally susceptible just like everybody else.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, keep going. Keep going. Oh, this is good. This is good shit. Is it a SI superego if I'm very sensitive to my well-being to the point I could feel stressed or aggressive when I'm physically uncomfortable?
Sure.
Could be, it could be
Yeah.
SI
Could
superego.
could
Yeah,
be.
yeah, yeah. Because you're definitely, it could be perceived as kind of stress point, So
This could also be potentially id SI as well. Remember we had those conversations in the past about like ESIs and like SEEs refusing to feel this idea that they're sick, held down,
yeah.
because there's also that kind of connection to like how
Well, I
long
hate
they're going
feeling
to be
sick.
sick
I don't
for.
really like feeling sick.
Yeah.
Also, feeling
So,
sick, it fucks up my mood too. Feeling
uh,
sick fucks up my mood. Like I just don't fucking like being sick. I like feeling fucking healthy. I like feeling strong. I like feeling vital. I don't like fucking being all fucked up. And come
mhm.
on, man, who likes that shit? Although I talked to John, I think he's like, it's cool, man. You could just relax. I'm like, I'm not relaxing when I'm sick. Yeah, I'm fucking miserable. Like, dude, there's nothing relaxing. Like, yeah, but you could just lay on the bed. It's like, no, buddy, no. I don't want to lay on the bed. I want to yell. I can't even yell because my fucking voice cracks then because I'm so sick. That's no, thank you. Come on, I'm fucking, shit's fucking coughing shit from my fucking throat. It's not fun, John. I'm sorry, it's not fun. Okay. Keep going forward. Okay. So core details to tell apart 1V from 2V, which shouldn't be hard. Ring, this is yours.
Yes, this is a really interesting question. It sounds like it's easy
It
in
is
like
easy. But
theory, and
listen to
it
it.
actually is kind of easy in demonstration as well. Generally speaking, the 1V, just like the first placement and the third placement are both very sensitive. We use the word vulnerable to the more pedantic out there. Vulnerability is huge within the first and third placement, where there's like a passive orientation with the second and fourth. So when we look at second volition, they're generally passive. They are harmonious. They are people that don't feel intense sensitivity over their volitions. where 1V actually does. And this is why 1V is more disharmonious. They have that sensitivity, that vulnerability to the position, and they they generally do not consider what others are looking for or determining their lives to be like. They tend to influence others and almost bulldoze over what their desires are. 2Vs like to integrate to other people's desires, even if the desires are weaker, if their personalities are weaker, they like to still form like a connection. True democracy versus the kind of like the fake democracy of the 1V, where they're Democrats, except everyone is below them, and they're the one on top. I would even say that 2Vs generally look at hierarchies a little bit more complex, where 1Vs generally have a hard time, not a hard time, but they barely think about too much of a distinguishment outside of they are particularly in a place of influence and others are not influencing them as much.
Yeah, and
Of course. Yep.
I think at the end of the day, that the second volition, the one volition is defined completely. They're a slave to their I, to their will, their path, right? Their identity. They are a slave to it. There's no compromising beyond that. That's like not the number one. With second volition, it isn't. They can compromise on that. But that's why it can also seem like a fourth placement. There's this flexibility. So we have Javier, we type Javier as second will. He can stomp on your fucking nuts. He can decapitate your fucking nuts. I can tell him, yo, decapitate them. He's gonna fucking decapitate. He's gonna manage people. He's gonna be able to be willful and be a great boss, even a leader of those people. Yet at the same time, he can be under someone and listen to someone and take orders from another person, telling them what to do. And he's gonna be like, yep, just tell me what to do. I'm gonna do it. I'll be able to do this. No issues. There's no like, he's very flexible. He can do both, you know? Rather than just someone who is intrinsically influencing everyone with their personality, like it or not. That's not the case with the second will, you know. So
second will can be influential, but the difference is that the 1V will influence you towards what they want to do and what their standards are and what their eventual like ambitions foretell them. And 2Vs are more likely to hear you out and try to harmonize with your desires and wants. And 2V's will is still strongly present, but like Russ said, you can actually confuse 2V with 4V. That's how passive the orientation is. And of course, you can confuse 1V with 3V as well, considering how vulnerable that they are. Of course, at a closer glance, that shouldn't happen, but that is something to be considered.
Good shit, man. Sorry if my question was vague. Don't worry, man. Don't worry, bro. Like it's not serious. I guess what I mean is that do you guys think there is any placement that will always or could never be a particular Enneagram type? 100 million %. 100 billion %, my friend. 1V Enneagram 9. Not a fucking thing. 1L Enneagram 9. Not a fucking thing. 1L fucking Enneagram 8. No way. 4V Enneagram 8. No way. Actually, even 2V Enneagram 8 is fucking cursed. But let's fucking just move on from that. 1E 4V. 1E E1, 1E, E1, 1E. But you get the point, or E2, 1L. Doesn't make any fucking sense. So there's so much, there's so many placements. It's crazy. It's crazy. Choleric sanguine fits which sociotype? Socionics more SCE. When it comes to like the blueprint, that's the SCE. I'm not sure about the other shit. Maybe there's some other shit, but that's like the fucking number one, how it's gonna be. Do you think stacks matter more in some types than others? Enneagram 5 tends to be similar, but the 6s can be very different, for example. Do you mean instinctual stacks?
Yeah. They're just saying if subtype. Yeah, if they're saying if subtype families tend to be more alike and more different. And we know that to be true. The E8s, the E7s, they are generally very similar to each other. The E5s might be the most similar to each other, where E6s are very different from each other. E4s are generally very different. I think a special shout out to E2s. They can be quite different as
Oh
well.
yeah.
But yeah, there is a standard deviation that's different from each one. But of course, it's good to keep in mind one that they are all part of the same subtype family because they share the Enneatype, but they all have their unique differences because the instinct is being invaded by the Enneatype. So you have to keep both in mind. You can't really simplify that either. Which is what Narano actually had a problem with in Character Neurosis. He tried very hard to simplify
Yeah.
the
All of
subtypes
them.
into just E8, E6, E5, and he didn't do it with E6 because it was too hard, but he did it with the others, and it clearly did not work as well, which is why there are dated aspects of Character Neurosis that I do criticize.
Okay, let's keep going. Change of conception of SLE, Russ's SE, blah blah blah. So Bill was saying, okay, Bill was saying I'm an SLE, and it's not a bad take. Listen, man, like in and also I think if you are thinking of an SLE, I understand you're thinking probably Western Socionics, which yes, I mean I'm probably an SLE. You know, I was always tapped as an SLE in Western Socionics. So yeah, in that perception, you're correct. In classical Socionics, that's not the fucking case. Any way, shape, or form, it never would be. You know, I'm not leaving from the SEE typing ever. It's just not gonna happen. What's a good way to clear up confusion of a 3 or 4 fix? Are you an emo fuck or are you someone who's vain? I mean, simple the fuck as, bro. You know, the 3 is more chameleonic, but it's also more cold. It's also more pragmatic. The 4, again, I'm assuming you're talking about tri-type, right? Not Ichazo. So with tri-type, that should just feel that shit out. Emo, brooding, individualistic, authentic, raw, more focus on what they lack. Okay. 3, more cold, more unemotional, more pragmatic, more fucking sneaky, blah, blah, blah. Easy peasy, lemon fucking squeezy, broski. Which types do you believe are compatible with sexual 6 LSI? Okay, this is gonna be for Ring. How does one person with an aspect in third placement deal with a person with the same aspect in the third placement? Actually, it's funny because yeah. This is juicy because I have that happened to me. Third logic, first logic. Let's just
But how
say
does a person with an aspect
yeah,
in third placement deal
yeah.
with a person with that aspect in third placement? Wait.
It's a fuck fest for me. Oh man, it's a fuck fest. It's a fuck fest. Like oh my god, bro. Like logically,
So
the
like
amount of
three
times.
L's,
Yeah,
like
3
two,
L,
three
1
L's.
L.
Oh no! I thought he's saying the same one. If I'm
Wait,
reading this correctly, how does a person with an aspect in the third placement deal with a person that aspect in the third placement? I
yeah,
think
but
he
he's
said
saying
third
like
placement twice.
one first logic, third logic. Like how does a person whose first logic interact with another person whose third logic, or 1V and 3V, and then stuff like that?
Interesting.
Because
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you can actually answer this quite well.
well, for me, you know, like I have a couple of friends who are 1L, and it was very problematic. Like we had many butt heads very fucking hard because of that, you know. It grinds me the wrong fucking way. First logic, you know, the stubbornness, the assumption that they fucking know better and shit like that. I just can't do it. I just can't fucking do it. I don't know. It's just the way they approach it. They're just not all fucking open minded, and they just assume you're fucking wrong. I just can't do that. Can you believe that? This prick comes to me, oh, you're fucking wrong. What the fuck did you just say? No way, you just said that because you're about to die. You know, but oh, bro, like yeah, it's a fucking issue, bro. What are the biggest misunderstandings about SP6? I think the biggest misunderstanding is SP6 is how actually
Yeah.
warm they are. I don't think this is bubbly. Oh my god, everyone happy. No, I think they are still a 6 core. They're still quite, again, logical to in that sense, mental, And there's this bit of detachment from the emotional space, in my opinion, still. So the warmth is not going to be genuinely bubbliness, but more just keeping relations safe and securing safety in others. So that's the way I think. What do you think, Ring?
I agree with you.
Man, look at you. You're so Sigma, you're not even going to fucking... I like that. You talked about relation with 2-1-Vs. How do you see 2-1-Es? I would say crying session. They're holding hands, crying. My boyfriend did that. My boyfriend said this. Well, my boyfriend didn't respond to me when I said I wanted to cuddle, and he looked at me. He gave me a look, and now I'm crying. That's, I would say, how 2-1-Es would go. Very good relationship. I think they're best friends. They both venting. Great. But on a serious note, I feel like 2-1-E people will relate to each other a lot. Very relational, probably. They'll be able to connect with each other and share a lot of that kind of deep emotional connection and information, in a sense, you know, because they'll understand each other in that way. So I think it can be good, as long as they're not crying together or crying at each other, for example. That would be fucking tragic. I remember asking about the superego block can be approached. There is a phobic, avoid it, and the counterphobic, gigacope, and try hard. How would this influence? Would this influence Enneatype? Can you answer this one?
I remember asking about how the superego block can be approached. There is a phobic, avoid it, and a counterphobic, gigacope, and try hard. Would this influence Enneatype? Interesting. This is like a deep level correlation conversation,
Yeah,
which
this
is
is like a deep...
quite intriguing.
It's quite intriguing, but it's too
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. You know what? I'm gonna take my stab at it. Okay, like let's take an example of there is the IEE social 3 versus the IEE sexual 7. There's the SEE social 2 versus the SEE sexual 8, and there's clearly really different interaction styles, defense mechanisms, coping strategies. So I can see that to be an example, but generally not always true. I think this is just a bit too vague, and I think that you can't really find a decent rule out of it. So other than that, I think it's not a great...
You will not find anything that's applicable across the board and that's solid. Yeah, that's what I think. I don't think you'll find any solid pattern here. It will be too dependent on the individual. It's not going to happen. I don't think so. Let's keep going forward. How do you explain the id part in Socionics? Sir, Ryder, listen, if you want to learn about the id, I explained that shit in depth in my Socionics full guide video. Just open the fucking main page and you're gonna have everything explained. All the fucking blocks, easy peasy, lemonade squeezy. It'll thank me later. Can you talk about the difference between shame and beauty in the counterphobic sexual 6? I don't understand the beauty part of the sexual 6. I've never seen it manifest, you know, maybe because I don't see sexual 6 women. But the strength, I feel like, listen, the sexual 6 is, at least in the book, is portrayed by someone who wants to be the hero, even giving examples of like a guy who was so scared, but he ran in this to save a woman because something happened and he was the fucking vigilante, he was the hero. So I think they want to project strength and they want to acquire strength, have that strength to be able to handle the hardships of the world and the fears that they have. That is what they do. A projection of strength can kind of make you not want to fuck with them. The problem with this though is people misuse it, because an SP8 can be like, 8s are notorious bragging people, bragging, I'm tough, I'm fucking tough. You see that shit, circle jerking the fuck out. Now that doesn't make them 6s. So you have to kind of tell the difference between strength in an 8, strength in a 6. It's a bit different. The sexual 6 is still not such a open figure who is inviting people, you know, try me or whatever. They're not really doing that. You know, they're like, well, if you try me. This is someone who's described as, if they are rebelling, they're watching everyone. You know, they're, oh shit, Let me scan. If I'm rebelling, but let me scan. The 8 rebels, doesn't think. So there's a difference. And I think strength is really just portrayed in that they will ward off any kind of potential threat by not necessarily being aggressive and but having a more ready stance, being more intellectually capable, being more to put the other person down, fight back against that. I think that's what's going to happen. What do you think, Ring?
I think there's an aspect that people forget about sexual six, which is written in the E6 book, is that sexual sixes are afraid of not being like masculine enough. Generally, that's the story. It might probably be feminine enough or just like strongly feminine in the other gender expression. And they like have this problem where it's like they feel like they're not going to attract a mate and they're not going to attract a significant other, and this is really connected to the sexual aspect of the sexual six. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well, that the sexual six is insecure about their attraction.
It's yeah, because there's this insecurity, this fear, but it's also kind of fucked, because then you have the sexual 3 who wants to fuck. I'm fucking dying.
Ew.
Fuck me. Okay, let me fucking compose myself. But that's okay. We don't give a fuck. We live. So, as I was trying to make a fucking argument, okay? Which is, sexual 3 can be mistaken for that if we fixate on that, because sexual 3 wants to fit this masculine standard. We see the 8s also being that over masculine macho motherfucker. So this is confusing if just people fixate on this strength thing, especially if, you know, people fucking have misinterpretation. So that's my take on that. Let's move on from that shit, because I'm choking. I'm fucking dying.
You okay, bro?
Yeah, I'm okay.
You need some water? I can hold on the fort.
I'm just crying with it, though. It's all good.
Mm-hmm.
It's all good. Oh, shit.
All right, buddy.
Okay. To what extent do you think SI bases can become thrill seekers? I'm not sure. Listen, I think with SI bases, I'm not sure they're thrill seekers. I think they are they're hedonistic, but I'm not sure if it's the same thing as thrill seeking. It's not, you know. So is it possible? Of course, bro. 100%. Is it something that, SI bases, they're more likely to be thrill seeking? I wouldn't say that. You know, that's my. What's your take, Ring?
I think so. I think there's some SLIs that you would see in, like, as a race car driver, for example.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I think that's
yeah.
I mean, I think that's thrill seeking.
But to me, that's just a Sunday drive. So I don't know. You know, I guess everyone's a standard. I don't count that as thrill seeking, because you're a driver. Like, you are a fucking, like, for example, if I was
like a race car driver.
No, even then. Because I would be a professional driver and I would still not say, I'm thrill seeking because I'm like a race car driver. No, it's a job, bro. It's your job. It's your passion. But, you know, you drive cars fast, bro. That's what you do, you know? I wouldn't say like that makes you thrill seeking. I think thrill seeking is like, yeah, I drive really fast cars. I go fucking skydiving. I'm a nutcase. I need that shit. That's how I would define it personally. But, you know, it's all different. It's all different. Let me see. What does FE ego create? Do they play with ethics? They don't play with ethics. Well, so the FE ego, I think what people often don't understand, that FE ego can be quite moralistic, right? And that's one thing that they don't understand. But most importantly, this is someone who has access to your emotions, your emotional states, who pays attention to them and can influence them at will. Basically, they can impose their emotion on you in any specific way that they want. This is quite deliberate. They know exactly what the fuck they're doing. So that's FE ego, basically, my friend. Fuck me. What would be social 8 archetype in Big 5?
Oh, Big 5 questions are all you, buddy.
Oh, fuck me. Not Skoy, no. I'm not sure, bro. I cannot tell you, because Let's wait till the book in September. Then we can do it. Choleric sanguine cannot be SLE. It's not really what seems like an SLE to me. The sanguine part doesn't fit SLE very well. So that's my opinion. Okay, this one's gonna be for you, Rain, don't worry. Can the defense mechanisms of Enneagram types be used naturally by other types, or is it really only one per type? What if I notice more than one in a person?
Oh, that happens all the time.
Elaborate.
Well, I mean, all the time might be an exaggeration, but like here's an example that's very popular: E2s and E7s with overabundance. Sure, that if you look under the mechanisms is a bit different. There is a very strong neurosis problem with E2s and their capabilities and what they are able to do and how they connect to being loved, right? E7s also overinflate their egos and think that they can do anything, but for other reasons, you know? A lot with planning and then seeing things that other people cannot and being a visionary and yada, yada, yada. And over the surface, they both are highly hedonistic, highly optimistic, and they overinflate their capabilities. That's a lot of shared mechanisms. So that's just a really good example of how you clearly see very hedonism is more E7, but E2s do it. Overabundance is more E2, but E7s do it, you know, and optimism is more E7, but you see E2s do it. So it's definitely something that you can see all the time. Even like in terms of being rebellious, E2s and E8s are both kind of rebellious, especially if you look at the social 2 and compare it to the other E8s. Did the stream close? Can you also hear me?
Bro, the stream didn't fucking close, alright? I'm just drinking.
Oh, okay. I was like,
Oh
whoa, am
my
I just
God,
talking
I'm
to
doing
myself
very
here?
unsavory things you wouldn't want to see.
Yo, thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh man. Okay, I'm back.
Yeah, this actually connects a lot to what I was gonna say a little bit later about like connections in the Enneagram shape, right? With neighbors and being across from it. Twos and sevens are across from each other. That's why they share a lot of those traits. But we'll talk about that in today's podcast. It's all coming up.
Not sure if it will come up if we keep answering fucking questions, bro.
I know. I thought you're gonna, you're gonna handle the questions. You want me to start talking about the next thing?
I'm confused. What are you saying? I mean, you want me to answer the questions while at the same time you're yapping about your shit? That's not
I'm
possible.
saying that.
Ring.
No. I'm saying that what we could do is we could take a break from the questions now, and I can go into my next thing, or
Okay,
we can save it for next time.
Get to your next thing.
Next thing is people assume when we're talking about verbal influence and PY, even verbal seduction, that it's almost entirely a logic thing. But in fact, fiery, hot words can be utilized by top emotions as well, and that emotions exist in verbal influence. And I think that's a huge thing. Like, people assume that emotions are some body language thing, and they can be, right? But they also exist in the verbal linguistic sphere, similar to logic, and that's how it's kind of transferred. So logic shapes thinking, reasoning, mental landscape, and impersonal communication. But emotions in PY shapes attraction, expression, sentimental landscape, and the mystical. And they are both utilized, and you can see them very well with Tolstoy, which is VEFL, and then Lenin, which is VLFE, that they are very adaptive with their second logic and their second emotion, and they catch people and influence them with either their very intensive, hot language that gets people attracted towards them. And then with Lenin, it's like these logical structure and playing with not the content, but the structure of language and raising themselves up and down to people's levels to be able to influence them. But they're both very verbal and linguistic. So I want us all to not forget that emotions are a verbal type of thing. We've actually seen with EFVL Pushkins, legendary EFVLs, that it's been described that when they get into an argument with somebody, especially if someone's triggered their third will, the first thing they'll do is literally leave the situation in which their third will has been triggered, go and write a letter expressing how exactly they feel in like burning language, send it to them, the person who like offended them, and if that doesn't work, then they'll go back and then they'll fight them. It's really funny, but it's very notice how emotions are very verbal linguistic. So it's good to note that verbal seduction, verbal influence, verbal impact is not always logic. It is associated more with logic in soul, because that's kind of like the only place it can exist in. Emotions can be a lot more body language, right? But it does exist within the verbal, so you got to keep that in mind.
Is there what's the okay? So what will be the next thing you will want to talk about?
The next thing I would want to talk about is we are misusing our the archaic functions in Jung, right?
Okay, so you're
We're not
gonna wait
using
for
them
that.
enough.
We're
Yeah,
gonna answer
so
some
so we could
questions.
yeah, let's answer some questions now
Do you
about
think
it, and then
Enneagram
we could
types? Yeah, what's up?
and then we can keep doing that. Maybe we can answer like 5, 10 questions, and then go
Yeah,
to the
I'm
next
thinking.
thing.
Yeah, answer some,
Yep,
and that's what I'm
that
thinking.
would be the process.
And that would be the method. Yes. Do you
Yes.
think Enneagram types can change? Yes. No, I don't think they change. Simple the fuck as. I don't. I don't. The difference between NEFI and NETI superego versus E and C. NETI superego sounds exactly like pride. What? No, fucking doesn't. Who fucking told you this? It compares the internal essence of themselves with others and places them in a hierarchy. But that's not even fucking pride, though. Like, what do you mean pride? Like pride or pride as a tool? Because that's not the fucking that definitely doesn't sound like fucking pride. um, the difference. The difference is that NEFI, the SLE is coping about being loved. That's the bottom of the fucking question. It is the SLE thinks he's not. It's about not being desired and not being loved because of his internal qualities, his capabilities, and all of that stuff. That's where the worry comes from. Which is kind of weird, you know. SLE coping about not being loved. Not very Sigma. But fuck it, you know. Okay, 2 more questions. We're moving forward. Is 1E3V emotionally constipated? It can be. Who says no? What are the most... Okay, last question, then we're gonna have ring yap.
Mm.
Well, the most common misconception of the SP4 in your experience, they're not Sigmas like people think they are. We make jokes, we say Sigma, they aren't. The biggest misconception is that SP4s are like the average David Goggins. No, they are sensitive, hypersensitive people who are very emotional, and they are enduring this emotionality and sensitivity when no one's looking. That's what they're doing, you know. Very sensitive people. Yeah, that's the biggest difference. It's a 4-core. Yes, it's a counter type, but it's a very sensitive and very emotional person. And this gets forgotten because we see a bunch of like those Sigma men being typed as SP4. Like, what the fuck, you know? Like, that fucks up with our image of the type. I would like an SP4 artistic. Let's say an artist who's SP4. That kind of would work a bit better to portray the image, you know? Artistic, deep, enduring, you know? Definitely enduring, but make no mistake, not a true Sigma, you know? Okay, Ring, you can start yap session.
Okay, so we're gonna take it over towards some classic young psychological types, right? And that's really exploded again here. We kind of had a golden age for psychological types. It's been popular in the community for a couple of years now, but particularly with our more personal community, it's gotten a resurgence. And we're doing pretty good with it, especially because most of us have now been typing everyone correctly. which is when you find out if your subject is first extroverted or irrational, extroverted or introverted, then irrational or rational. And that's more important in the typing process than figuring out what their functions are. So let's say you look at Russ, right? And you look at him, he's like, that dude's a sensor. That's actually really bad methodology. And Jung says it himself because we kind of utilize all the different functions situationally. What you need to do is look at this guy here, right? Rusted typology and be like, well, this guy is clearly an extrovert over an introvert. He wants to create consensus. He has social strategies to relate to others. He wants to be a part of the greater whole and is intrigued with the relationships between the objects and others. Cool, he's an extrovert. Next thing we have to figure out is he irrational or rational? And I would say that he's very irrational. This is not a rational person. This is not a person who deliberates and makes decisions based off of some sort of criteria. In fact, I think that he's a lot more feeling heavy and goes by the flow of things. Look at him in the back. He goes by his personal feelings about the matter and connects to a greater extroverted whole, but he's not someone who rationalizes. I would say that he is irrational. So he is an extroverted irrational type. Amazing. Now that you establish those two things, you can talk about what function he is, which would be either intuition or sensation. I would say that by his concrete, realistic, grounded, practical nature, I would easily say he is sensation over intuition. And this is super important because people assume being concrete, practical is more of an extrovert thinking thing to do. But in fact, it's actually sensation. In fact, you could take it further and say that extrovert thinking types are very idealistic, and that's actually the way they're described to in psychological types because everything needs to fit to criteria, everything needs to fit to the formula. And sensation types take things as they literally exist in reality, uncorrupted. And so that's why you could say that the most concrete function is actually sensation. So putting it all together, he's an extroverted, irrational sensation type. But there's a fourth step that a lot of us are missing, which is the archaic. And the archaic always exists because everything in Jung is a dichotomy. If rusted typology is a sensation dominant type, that means he has made intuition, the exact opposite, unconscious within his cognition. And that is clear because he is someone that has to see the thing exist in our mutually accessible real world, non-subjective as possible. He has to be able to see it for him to believe what you are saying. In fact, if you are making actions, decisions, have thought processes that are around things that don't exist in our tangible world, he will be the first person to go to arms about how that's not possible, that's not feasible. Why would you focus on that? You are being delusional. And that is because he has archaic intuition. If he cannot literally see it, it is something that he doesn't put value towards. But does that mean that it doesn't influence him? In fact, I would say that archaic intuition influences him in every sensation type because there's this idea of archetypes and the shadow self and the collective unconscious and things that influence society that isn't tangible, like social roles and what are places in the greater universe. You can't always figure that out by just looking at the real world. And this is something that trips him up, and he kind of knows it. Every sensation type kind of knows there's some aspect that's deeper than what you can see, but they have a hard time dealing with it. And archaics is exactly what we're talking about today. Archaics are super important because you will never get a sensation type who doesn't have archaic intuition. You will never get a thinking type who doesn't have archaic feeling. You'll never get a feeling type that doesn't have archaic thinking, and you won't have an intuition type that has archaic sensing. So let's flip the switch here, right? Archaic sensing and intuition is super obvious too. Intuitive types, they go by a collective unconscious. They just sense things, and it is what it is. It's very simple intuition. There's no deliberation. There's no thinking because that would be that thinking. They literally feel something, and that's what it is. It comes from nowhere. That's the intuition that Jung had prescribed to the intuitive types. But they are like allergic to, they have frustrations with, they are afraid of tangible reality, things that are in front of them, buildings and planes and the weather and health and peoples and groups and what actually exists in the real world is something that intuitive types actually struggle with, and that's super important to think about. You can't just think about an intuitive type and not think arc archaic sensation. You can't think a sensation type and not think archaic intuition, and this is super important. So whenever you're applying psychological types and young, always consider if your subject shows the archaic. If they don't, there's a problem with your typing. You need to consider the archaic. And in particular, remember that someone's archaic is very negative. It's cynical. It doesn't have good feelings about it. Let's just say that. And just to be holistic about it, right? Thinking types have archaic feelings, so they want to be subjective. They want to be as like rationalized in a logical way as possible. So when they have sentiments or moral standards, they have that problem with it. E1s are a great example of this. They're generally ETs, right? And you see that the mix between the moralism with everything needs to be having a logical formula or principle. Feeling types with their archaic thinking, right? You'll notice that they have this issue where like they'll have sentiments, morality, feelings about society, but they're not really connected to some sort of formula, some measure, some standardization that's impersonal, and then they get really triggered about that too. So every single function has another function that they're opposed to, and they get triggered by, and you have to remember that. So that's something I wanted to point out for psychological types.
You want to point it out. Let me. My camera is so PTSD'd. So, I like how you casually just said, I wanted to point it out, and then you yapped for 25 minutes. I think it's a beautiful, the way you did it was beautiful. You like, I just wanted to point it out. It's not. Guys, I hope you paid attention though, okay? Like, I hope you fucking took notes. This is a professor. Take the fucking notes. Ah, man.
Oh, yes, man. If someone wants to, please stop that.
I mean, no, listen. It's hard for me because it's a different level of yap. And it's hard sometimes for me. I think I have ADHD. So when I'm silent and I'm supposed to sit, my brain shuts off. I can't do it. I cannot do it. I can't do it. Sorry, guys. I forgive me. No, that's what I was writing in the chat. I was having fun with the chat while you were yapping. You was educating everyone. No, but okay. What's gonna be the next topic? Because we had the archaic, we had the like Jungian. What's gonna be the next thing that you propose?
Oh, the verbal functions in Socionics, aka the controversial valued.
Oh my god!
We're gonna bring it back. We're bringing back valued.
Oh fuck!
But we're gonna do it right this time.
Okay, give me a second. I'm just gonna answer some questions. In misery, other than obvious answers such as sexual 3 or 2-core. What other types would be insecure about their charisma? 2-core isn't insecure about their charisma. I think they're pretty fucking confident about it. Those motherfuckers are seductive, you know? Insecure about their charisma? I don't know, bro. I don't think it matters. Okay, let me see. Man. How would you tell, how different are SLE and SE in your opinion? To be honest, they're not that different. They're different, but it's not like, oh my god, it's a different... Look, I have SLE best friend. We relate to each other. Pretty much like, we relate to each other in a way where we don't relate to other people the same way we relate to each other. Now, you can argue it's the Enneagram, which that could be the case, but also it's, you know, we are an SE and SLE, and we still have so much that we relate to. Now, some things we don't relate to are very blatant differences. He's much more practical. He's better in the objective practical world. This guy is the numbers guy. If I'm like, yo, listen, man, we have this deal, I'ma do the talking, but like, I need this information. What the fuck do we tell them? How much do we want? He's gonna be the numbers guy. He's gonna be the practicality guy. He's gonna be able to be pragmatic, right? While me, not so fucking much. I leave that shit to you. So that's how it manifests. For me, ethics, I'm more chilling. I'm not worried about ethics the same way. Relations with people, morals. I have my own views on all of those things. For him, he has a very normative view of morality, very normative view of ethics, and he has a fear of also being a bad person if he opposes those agreed structures of morality. And he derives his morals from very objective external systems, like religion. That's where he gets his values from, because he doesn't know on his own what the fuck. He doesn't trust his own judgment in the ethical world. That's not the same for me as an SCE. I don't care if religion or anything says something is bad or wrong. I ask myself, why the fuck would it be bad just because this motherfucker told me it's bad? I don't care. I have my own view, and I pick and choose however I want to use it. So that's a big difference. I'm also, as an SCE, I'm more expensive, I'm more energetic, so in a friend group, I'm gonna be harder to deal with interpersonally than he is, because he's a bit more chill, he's chiller. For me, I'm more interpersonally, obviously, in your face, so I'm gonna be harder to deal with, for sure. But more expensive, more energetic, more, charisma, bullshit, all of that shit. That's kind of the difference, man. But other than that, they're very similar, very similar. Oh, fuck, now I started yapping.
Yeah, look at you. Look at you now.
Yeah, you like that shit, don't you, though? You like that shit, don't you?
That's fine.
All right, let me see. Last question, maybe, or something? Someone says, isn't value decapitated? Yes. But we'll talk about that.
It's more nuanced than that. So I think that's a great transition, isn't it?
Yes.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Valued versus unvalued in socionics. Now, the Western sphere kind of took this concept and ran with it. And honestly, I think the fundamentals of their system rest within this dichotomy of valued versus unvalued. But hear me out. For those who are in the know, understand already that valued and unvalued is not necessarily correct. When Western socionics talks about valued versus unvalued, there's an aspect of, my life, my worldview, everything I do and how I interact with the world is within my valued. And the exact opposite for unvalued. I don't see the world like that. I don't interact with it in that way. I don't consider it that way. Almost, especially like WSS, felt like it was kind of like a four-function model, funny enough, because of that. In classic socionics, right, the socionics that Augusta talked about, there is no valued versus unvalued. However, there is verbal versus non-verbal. And those in the know already know what it is. But for those who are not in the know, verbal, right, the main features of the verbal blocks, and it's the same dichotomy as valued versus unvalued. So you're going to look at the same functions. You're looking at the first, the second, right? And you're going to be looking at the fifth and the sixth, right? And so that's like the base, the creative, the mobilizing, and the suggestive. This is the block where arguments, discussions, and even attacks are possible. People generally don't get too embarrassed and invested in a kind of neurotic way about discussions. And it almost feels like an intellectual game for people who have the same verbal to talk about it. So if you are, for example, we have Russ here who's an SEE. ring M and LIE, we have the same verbal. And we could talk about TE, we could talk about NI. So we could talk about objective factual qualities about life, how things move, right? We could talk about where things are going, where things came from. We could talk about the aesthetics and the determination of objects, and we can also talk about how we relate to each other in a loving or not loving type of way. So we have that same type of verbal, and we could talk about it. It won't get like really intense. Well, it couldn't get intense, but it won't be in an erotic way. However, let's change the script here. Let's talk about our nonverbals. Nonverbals are places of more of a collective activity, right? They're the place where you have to be careful that people are very neurotic about it. If I go out here like really in depth about our relationship in terms of introverted thinking, I'm going to have a problem with Russ eventually. It will trigger him. Same thing is if he goes into extreme detail and depth about introverted sensing, maybe his like routine, his regimen, what makes him feel really good. He tells me about his fucking sex life. That's gonna make me uncomfortable. And we already are attuned to not talking about that with the Socionics model. That's why it is nonverbal. We only talk about it very carefully. Where for our verbals, we want to hear about it and we'll spit on it all the time. Like we'll spit shit on it like all the time. And that's really important because why someone was telling me, why does this matter? Why does verbal versus nonverbal matter? It matters because it clearly describes the social dynamic. It clearly describes social norms. A place where your verbals are mostly shared is going to have a different environment than a place where your verbals are not very shared and it's mostly a nonverbal space. And of course, you're all thinking, Ring, are you remaking quadras? And I'm saying yes. And quadras haven't gone anywhere. Quadras are interesting in the sense that they're groups of people who share the exact same verbals in just different function placements, right? And I think it's important for everyone to consider that verbals do exist and that you might have an ILE who is going to be super interested in hearing about someone's SI and then respond and talk to that other person's SI conversation, but not be a static type. I mean, not be a dynamic type, they'll still be a static type. You're going to see someone like Russ, who's an SEE, right? Talk about, well, isn't this the best way to do this, right? And be all like, intense about it. And then you're going to hear someone like me saying, no, why would you even do anything about this? It will resolve itself. And he's like, oh, okay. And it won't be this like personal thing because those are verbals for us. So just to summarize, verbals are something that you can be experimental with. You can have arguments and discussions. You can even attack people with verbals who have the same verbals at you, and it won't be a personal big deal. However, nonverbals, if you try to have discussions, arguments, be subjective, and attack people with it especially, you're going to have really big issues. And I think that is interesting that we can develop some quadra value ideas out of this that aren't as pervasive as they are in Western, but enough to consider that verbal versus nonverbal is an interesting dichotomy that is insightful to our communication. And I'll stop right there.
By the way, Ring, I believe that ESI, from my personal experience, will look closer to an LSI than an SCE. What do you think? Like,
I
in
think
my opinion.
I think it depends. It really,
Oh,
really.
fuck it. So it depends on the person.
Yeah, I think it depends. I've seen ESIs that come across more like SEEs, right? Like when we say that looks like it, would we say their best alternative typing would
Like
be
more
either
like you look at them and they seem more like an LSI than they would seem like an SCE.
And that's the thing, right? The LSI and SEE both have, I think, almost equivalent differences to the ESI. This is not like an ESI comparing it to like an ILE, right? LSI and SEE, like if you combine it, like you make an ESI. So I feel like you're probably focusing on the parts that are similar between LSI
I
and
just
ESI.
feel like the rationality is such a big difference with the ESI and the fact they're constructivist. You will not. I would never mistype myself as an ESI. So whenever I see those motherfuckers, those SCEs who are like, oh, maybe I'm an ESI, you know what the fuck you are? You're a mistype. Because you don't see me fucking being like, maybe I'm an ESI. The fuck? I would never fucking consider ESI for myself. There's so many fucking things that are wrong with this type. ESI, I'd early fucking type as an SLE. Fuck all that. So I don't understand those SEEs who think they're like ESIs, or ESIs who think they're SEEs. Stop the fucking cap. Stop the fucking cap. You're neither. That's my fucking take.
I really think that unfortunately Socionics is not a perfect system. Most are not, right? I think that everyone's going to fit into a particular best fit sociotype, and some ESIs are just going to come across a lot more like SEEs than they will LSIs, and some ESIs will come across so put together and perfect and more rational, you know? I think that that happens a lot with like LIEs. There's some LIEs that look like a lot more like ILEs or like ILIs, but then there's some LIEs that look more like LSEs. And I think that it really depends on the subject at that point. I think there's no rule that can be made for it.
Bad rage bait. Social 2 only works with SC, and I don't think it works that well. I mean, I've seen the comment, it is rage bait. If you think one SE base is gonna be an 8 core, but the other SE base is gonna be a 2 core, I mean, I don't know what the fuck's wrong with you. Maybe you should stop smoking all the fucking weed. Because you're typing in SE base and you think it's archetypally gonna be a 2 core. Even fucking SCE Social 2. No, how common would that fucking typing be? Fucking just stop. Oh my god, stop tripping out on my fucking stream. Holy shit. Alright. Now, how would you differentiate FI base and FI creative and approach? Can FI base hate what someone does? Yes. An FI base person can hate someone. Like, can hate what the FI creative person does with their FI. 100%. Because you have to understand, FI base is bound by FI. That's the main way of that's the main program, baby. That's what it is. Now with FI creative, nah, bro, they're SE base or they're NE base. That's their main program, not the FI creative. The FI creative is a situational tool that works creatively. They can fucking do with it whatever that they want. And they will probably use it in many ways that many ESIs or FI bases will not agree with. That's my personal take. Unless Ring has something different.
No, I think you hit it. Well, that's good.
You should look at SC plus and SC minus. Oh my god, yes, I know, but we already know this. We know the charges. But you're still thinking an SE base is gonna be a fucking 2 core, which is an emotional type focused on pride, understanding and predicting people's emotional states, right? And it's very emotional, seductive type, which I agree, as you said, the NETI, it can work with pride, social too. I'm not saying it doesn't. It makes sense with the social too. A person who wants to climb the social ladder, they're full of capabilities, and obviously their capabilities mean that they have this status, that they have this power. I agree, but no, SE Plus suddenly doesn't make you a fucking 2 core. It just doesn't make sense to give any 2 core, like just overall 2 as an archetype to an SE base. Because I don't think you understand. If you say that, I'm not sure you will know what an SE base is like at that point, you know? Maybe you're confusing it for something else. Ugh. You've turned into a keyboard warrior all of a sudden. That's what happens when I cannot yap. I stop being a keyboard warrior. SC is an ethical type. FI is associated with seduction. What? SC is an ethical type. Oh my god. No one says they aren't though. Okay, but again, your understanding of an SCE is probably because you're following cosplaying SCEs. Stop listening to motherfuckers who are cosplaying and really, observe real ones. That will be beneficial to you, because that's not the, I can find you so many fucking SCEs in broad fucking daylight examples who are not this hyper, like an emotional person who just wants to make sure everyone depends on them. Everyone needs them. And emotionality is the number one fucking goal. It fucking ain't. It fucking ain't. Okay? Okay, guys, listen. Actually, we are gonna be leaving soon, so we have 5 more minutes. If you have any more questions, you can ask them. Okay. Oh my god, this guy, bro, you are rage baiting so fucking hard. Fuck. Fi plus, which by the way is more likely to express hatred, any kind of feeling that they got that doesn't fit 8. I mean, I don't know what the fuck to tell you, bro. I mean, shit. All right. How to differentiate LIE and ILE or even SP7? No, bro, that's two different systems. Ring, can you answer this question?
Dynamic versus static, the golden dichotomy. LIE and IRLE are very similar. They're probably the most similar quasi-identicals, but you really got to think about it. This is someone who's going to be. LIEs are dynamics. They focus on how things are done, how things move, where things are going, how people are feeling, and how people are feeling like in physically as well. ILEs are considered about the internal content of people, what are people capable of, the potential, how everyone relates to each other and gets their needs met, where they fit into the overall grand scheme of things, how theories relate to each other, what's the value of those things, what is the kinetic value and qualities of themselves and others, and then how they are loved and how they love others. You know, those are very different because they're mental rings and they consciously focus on two different things.
Thank you, bro. Now, what would you say are the misconceptions with social 7? Although I feel like that's just worth the interview. I feel like, right? What'd you think?
I'll say one thing that social sevens are truly spiritual and mystical and believe like heavily in like the religious self. They mortgage and subjugate this type of thing for their own personal extraordinariness, but they're not very mystical and spiritual. I think that's a misunderstanding.
Yeah, because I see often people say no, the true archetype, like the portrait of the social 7, is someone who's like a spiritual guru, right? That's what we often see described.
It's funny because social 8, social 2, social 5, a bunch of E4s, they're all like considered to be like spiritual. Like especially social 5, that's the Buddha type, you know? And but people don't see it as this mystical spiritual individual. You know, they see it as someone who mentalizes that type of experience, but that's exactly what the social 7 does too. So it's just a misunderstanding. Social 7s are not spiritual by nature. They're just attracted to things that are extraordinary, and spirituality just happens to be one of those things.
What are the problems with SCE sexual 4? Raven made a document about sexual 4 SCE. You should check it out. I'm sure. I think you can find it. You should read it because he broke down the quotes and the type quite well. I mean, there are people who I would type as SCE sexual 4. So I'm not gonna say there are problems with it. If I would type them as that, I cannot say there are problems with it. Okay, is there going to be a sexual 8 interview? Maybe not. Maybe never. You know, who knows? Maybe Russ should make a video explaining charges.
Yes, that's probably a good idea because we can explain why charges exist and what's the real background.
Charges are very misunderstood, which
Very.
I understand why, because it's a charge. Like, yeah, it can be easily misrepresented. I get that. Like Little Corporal is fucking doing right now. So okay, to forgive those who wrong others, to see the good in flawed people, to give chances. I guess that's, yeah, you're right, man. We should type just by fucking charges, man, bro. I agree with you. Fuck it. Just say, oh, fuck all that. We just type it because of not even the charge, the base charge. Fuck it. We just type by the second creative charge. I would say, yeah.
And let's just end this conversation with The SEE's FI is so high that it could go either way. It literally will just pick the right version of FI to forgive and to not forgive, to make distance or lessen distance. This is the problem with charges. To give this example that it's dichotomous, it's not, especially if you're talking about four dimensions and third dimensions of functions. So I don't really even fucking understand this shit.
Would Raven be part of the Odyssey? No, it's not gonna happen. Never, never. It's never gonna happen. Yeah, he's to be honest, Raven's low key, you know. Like there are many people who hate on him, but they're fucking losers. They're always coping fucking bitches. But on a serious note, he is just minding his own business. He's chilling. He's not really that interested in typology. He has other shit to do. But we have Ring. Ring is gonna be the geek. Ring's gonna geek out. Ring's gonna yap. So you guys
I
don't
see
need
how
to
you
worry.
mentally categorize me in your head.
Yeah, you are the yapper. Like no, but yeah, all right, guys. Guys, listen. Next stream, maybe on Sunday we have another stream. We'll see how that goes, and stay tuned for the interview because I made a video today interviewing SP9. Might be interesting, you know, for you guys. Might be very interesting because SP9s are very underrated. So you will learn quite a bit, debunk some of the stereotypes, the images you have of the Sigma SP9. Although I mean, John is a Sigma, but not that kind of Sigma. Okay. Will you make broader answer my questions? That's life. That's life.
Just bring it back next time.
Stay tuned for the next time, for the next stream, and we'll answer them for sure. So, and also in Q&A. Sometimes we'll do Q&As. You can always ask us. Okay. So we out. We chows, and we bouncing. All right. See you on Sunday.
See ya.
See you on Sunday, boys. Bye bye. Thank you for coming in. Now fuck off. Kindly.